is Adriana Vasilake, and it's my greatest pleasure to introduce you Zain Ul Abidin, who will be telling us from his experiences as club builder and club helper, because during his over 3 years of being a Toastmaster, he reached spectacular peaks. He started with serving as a Sergeant at Arms, VP of Education, and President at Wroclaw Speakers. And he has been also an area director for Area D2, having 10 clubs in Poland. During his term, he helped charter 4 new clubs and helped 7 out of the 10 to reach distinguished status, including 2 struggling clubs. He was also declared Area Director of the Year. He has been awarded Outstanding Member Award, numerous Triple Crown Awards, and he has earned none less than 2 DTMs, 1 Legacy and 1 Pathways during his time in the organization. He recently moved to Dublin in District 71 and is a member of 3 clubs, and he is District's Club Extension Chair, helping the CGD in starting new clubs. So, a warm welcome to Zain.
Thank you, Adriana, for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be giving this webinar to my old district, where my heart is still in District 108, even though I have moved to Dublin and in a different district here. I'm so happy to give this webinar and share some knowledge from my experience. I don't consider myself an expert at any of this. This is all coming from what I observed while I was the area director, where I got a couple of struggling clubs and we had club coaches helping them, and one of them I was helping personally. And based on that, I will be sharing my experience. The webinar is called How to Give a Helping Hand to Struggling Clubs. It's not called how to be a club coach for struggling clubs. And you will see a bit later why. So let's jump right in. I had my first slide, which is called Who Am I? Well, I don't think I have to go through that anymore. I'll just quickly go through it because Adriana just said all of those things anyway. I have been in Toastmasters for more than 3 years, and I think I did more than average. A lot of my friends make fun of me because of that I'm a Toastaholic and I'm involved in everything. And that hasn't stopped just because I moved country and district. I'm still very much involved in Toastmasters organization and helping out in our new district in Dublin. So let's just jump right in. In terms of questions, maybe the best way to do would be that you just write it in the chat, and at the end we'll have a question and answer session, and then we can go through that in a bit more detail. This is the agenda for today. I will tell a short story which has nothing to do with Toastmasters. Then I will share what, in my opinion, means to be a coach for a club. What are the steps that you should take when you're just starting, when you've been assigned as a club coach, the possible problems that you may face with those struggling clubs, and what can be the solutions to them. And finally, we will have the question and answer session. I actually hope to leave a lot of time for question and answer because this is more of a discussion. As I said, I'm not an expert, so there might be some questions that you have that we may just discuss and brainstorm together what we can do about them, rather than me telling you what is the ideal solution for that. So let's get into the story. The story is actually from 5 years, and I used to live in Poland before moving to Dublin. 5 years ago, with a few of my friends, we decided in the summer, in June of 2014, to go to Tatra Mountains. Tatra Mountains are in the south of Poland, and they're the highest mountains in Poland we have. Now, this is a picture from that day. We woke up really early in the morning. It was a beautiful summer day, sunny, and perfect day to go hiking. I was super excited, and the views are just amazing. If you haven't been to these mountains, you should definitely visit. I mean, the lakes, the mountains, the sunshine, especially in summer, it's just beautiful. And there are not that many people even. So even though it's a bit hard to climb, that's why probably one of the reasons they're not, but it's not too hard. So it's very accessible for everyone. And I really, really enjoyed that trip. Now, as we were going along this trip, the higher we went, the tougher it got. So this is the path which, if I had the choice, I would not have chosen for myself. But I didn't know. I was just following my Polish friend who said, Zan, this is not a problem. And actually, all of us, we were four in the group, and three of us were non-experienced. Only one person was experienced with these mountains, and she was Polish. And she said, it's not a problem. It's a bit more tougher. It's a bit more challenging. Not a lot of people go there, but I think we can manage. So we started to go there. And as you can see in the picture, uh, there were chains along the path. So you were supposed to hold them and walk with them, because if you don't, you may fall and you may break a leg or worse. So we were going very, very carefully. Now, as you can see, even though it's June, it's really summertime, and the temperature was more than 10, it's higher than 10, but there was still snow. The problem is, as you may be aware, when the temperature is high and there's still snow, it kind of becomes very slippery kind of ice. So it's very dangerous. On top of that, we didn't have any experience, so we were not prepared. My hiking shoes were just simple hiking shoes. They were not for ice hiking at all. None of us had it. Anyway, this we didn't see it as a problem. Uh, but as we were going, this is not in this picture, but you can imagine there came a patch which was full of ice, really. And all three of my friends were right in front of me, and then there was a curve, and they just vanished behind that after crossing very slowly. So I followed them, and I took a step, and I took another step, and suddenly I slipped. Both of my feet slipped at the same time. So the only reason I didn't fall was because I was still holding those chains very tightly. Now I was very afraid. I was a bit shocked, actually. I didn't know what had happened. Fortunately, there were a couple of other people coming the other way, and they helped me up. So I crossed that rest of the path, and I met my friends, and I told them, guys, I just almost died. Uh, they didn't believe me. They said it's not possible to die, or on these mountains, it's not possible. Then what are you talking about? Well, I really believed that I just escaped death. So I was really in a different mode. And you can see it in this picture. So my friends are enjoying and taking pictures and having fun. And you can see my facial expression, because I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to go down from here? It's so dangerous. I was afraid to take a single step forward. Well, we had no choice. We had a very tight schedule. The sun was going down, so we started walking again. But this time, I was taking every step and thinking twice before stepping my foot forward. I was very, very slow. My friends were getting very impatient, saying that it's fine, go forward, go fast, because we have to reach our destination. But I was not listening, and I was going very, very slow. Now, this is the moment where I reached exactly this moment. A couple of my friends were far, far away, and I reached here and I stopped. There were no chains anymore, but the path was very, very small. And I thought, hey, I cannot cross this. This is way too dangerous. If I would put my foot forward, I will just die. So I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything. And I just stood there. My friends, in the meantime, were screaming, Zan, it's fine. It's fine. You can do this. We just did it. Look at us. We just did it. Well, I was not listening to them. I was just shocked. I was still full of fear from my earlier fall, which in my opinion still was a near-death experience. It might not have been in reality, but I felt like that. And as a result, I was very panicky. So I didn't want to move at all. Now, what made me move forward in that moment? It was definitely not the screams of my friend saying, Zan, you can do it. No, that didn't help at all. Uh, what did help was this, my friend who was wearing a yellow shirt. His name is Sami. He decided to come back. He climbed back up, and he came back, and he actually extended his hand and said, hey, take my hand. I will help you to cross this. Just trust me. So I took his hand, and he helped me to cross this patch. And once I did that, I felt a bit lighter. So then he was very close to me, walking and not screaming as my other friends were doing before, but saying, it's okay, it's fine. I'm here. I will help you. And just after like 10, 15 minutes, somehow the fear was gone. And so did the path. The path became easier. And this is me after about 45 minutes of that incident. I was just exhausted, not physically, but mentally. exhausted because of that experience. Now, in that moment, my friends still laugh about this story, but for me, there is an important lesson here. And the lesson is that sometimes things happen which are out of our control and they impact us in a psychological, mental level. So, and they stop us from fully realizing our potential. So we kind of don't trust ourselves. We are uh, stuck by fear, so we cannot move forward. And in those moments, it doesn't matter how many rational things you say to them. You can say, "Oh, look at that person, he's doing it," or just take a step forward. Doesn't help. What you have to do is just give a helping hand. That brings me back to what it means to coach a club. Well, it means exactly that. It means give a helping hand. Now, not like what is a struggling club? What is a club which needs coach? The club, a club that needs coach or which is qualified as a coach is a club which has 12 or less member. Uh, we can say it's a struggling club. How did they reach that? They were not always there. Something must have happened during the time that they chartered at 20, during the time that they maybe had 30 members, but then something happened slowly that brought them down to this level where we had to assign them a coach, where we were officially calling them a struggling club. Something must have triggered. And when that happens, somehow these struggling clubs kind of forget all the good things that we in Toastmasters are supposed to do, which is try new things, try to innovate, try to tackle problems, brainstorm. These these very obvious solutions that we take for granted in a successful club just don't seem to work because the guys, the people there that are still sticking to it are so afraid of making a wrong move because they think if we did, we may just simply die. And in that moment, the biggest job that you can do as a club coach is giving helping hand, is just to say, I'm here to help. Now, I will give now a concrete example. So what happened in my case, I was made area director in June of 2018, May of 2018. And I was talking, so it was in Poland. At that time, I had 6 clubs in that area. Only one was English speaking club, and that was mine. I had a German speaking club, which was struggling. It had like 10 members. And there was 4 Polish club, and one of them had only 10 members. Now, this Polish club was very, very specific. I had heard, while I had never visited them, maybe once I went to their meeting, but as they're a Polish club, so I don't speak Polish, so it was I didn't usually visit Polish club before I became an area director. But I did visit them once. But what I heard a lot of rumors about that club though. I heard that the founders are not very keen on really developing it, or they treat it as a social club or their own club and don't really want to improve it, and it's very toxic atmosphere and so on and on, and there is just no chance of rescuing it. Even the area director who was before me, who told me that, Zain, just don't put any effort, there is no point in helping them at all. But I remember one of the first thing we did, District 108 had just been created, and the theme line, the tagline we had was stronger together. And one of the things that, remember, we discussed in our first DCM TechM meeting was that we will not let any club die. And I took that seriously for myself. So I took it as a challenge that we have to do whatever we can to help this club in all conditions. With German club, it was very specific problem. That was simply there are not enough German people in the city to really make a vibrant club. That's a different kind of challenge. But with this club, that's not the challenge. There are many Polish people who would really enjoy being in Toastmasters. We're not going to that specific club because other Toastmaster clubs in Polish were thriving. So there was something definitely wrong with this one. Now, I don't speak even Polish. So can you imagine me helping them? I couldn't imagine myself. In this moment, we were meeting in Athens for the district conference, and I met the district director who is the current district director in District 91 in UK. And I was just chatting with him and asking him, like, I'm going to be an area director. This is my first time. You have done it before. Do you have any advice for me? He asked me a couple of things like what kind of clubs I have, and And I told him, like, I feel like the language might be an issue. And he said, the first thing you need to do is just visit them. Just go there and talk to the people, and let's see how that goes, even before your term starts. So term starts officially in July, but I still had 1 month before that. So that's what I did. I went there. And that's how you start. I was not appointed the club coach for this club at this point. I was just an upcoming area director, and this was one of the clubs that I had in my area. So what I did, I decided to give them a visit. It was June. Uh, Coincidentally, when I went there, they were having elections. The way they had election was they just chose between themselves who is going to be the officers, because they didn't have any members. So there was no competition. There was no need to do that election. It was a very bad meeting overall. But I didn't go there and sat there and just tell them how terrible they are. No, I didn't do that. They didn't know me. So all I did was say, hi, I'm Zain. I come from Roslo Speakers. You know that club. I live in Wrocław. And I'm going to be the area director. So just let me know how I can help you. So where do you start? Well, you start by being present. You go there and you just listen. You don't do anything. You just don't go there and tell them how to operate their club. That's not going to work. If I had gone on that first meeting and told them, guys, this is not how you run a meeting. This is wrong. Your marketing is bad. There was no event on Facebook or anywhere else. You don't have members. So this is how you grow members, or this is how you do roles. They wouldn't have listened to me. Who am I to them? Nothing. Just because I am area director does not give me any authority over them, right? They don't know me. Just because I'm appointed their club coach by the district does not give me any authority over them. I'm certainly not an expert or a trustworthy person for them. So first thing you need to do is just be there. Just be there, present in their meeting. Listen to them. Introduce yourself. Ask questions to understand their situation better. Like, ask the officers what's going on. Why do they think the club does not have enough members, or why do they think the club is struggling? That's the first thing you have to do. Now, with that club, the situation was a bit worse. So what happened there was that they had a couple of meetings in June, but then they did not have any meeting in July. They did not have any meeting in August. They did not have any meeting in September. They missed the club officer training. I could not get hold of anyone in the club. So I was kind of on the verge of giving up. Fortunately, as end of September, October rolled in, they did renewals. So they were late. They didn't do it by 30th September. I had to send an email, and then suddenly something happened. But they did renewals, and there were 9 people renewed out of nowhere. But when I actually talked to them, there were maybe 3 people that were active. The others were the original founders, some of them were not even in the city anymore, and they just paid because they didn't want to see a club they created die. There was one original founder still present though. I had a chat with him. They had a meeting and I went there. I had a chat with him. I said, your club is struggling and you have just 9 members on paper, while in reality you have even less. So we have to do something. And what we can do from a district. By this time they knew me a bit, so I could talk a bit more freely. I told them there is a possibility to appoint club coaches. Now, I don't want me to choose or ask, our district leaders to choose club coaches for you. Do you have someone in mind in our city from all the other clubs? We have very experienced clubs and Toastmasters here that you think could help you, and that you can have 2 club coaches. They gave one name, which is a very experienced Toastmaster. His name is Patrick Lechkowski. He's from the Polish, the oldest club that we have in the city. He was the president there at some point. They gave his name, and the second name they told me if I can help them. Now I was a bit reluctant because an area director is a whole full-time job, and we had a couple of new clubs starting, so I had kind of my hands full. But when they asked, I didn't want to say no because I felt they may feel like I'm just asking this and don't really care actually. So I said, yes, okay, I will help you. This was maybe in beginning of October, right? They had a meeting. They have meeting in Polish, so really I cannot really contribute. Also, all I do is just sit there for 90 minutes up to 2 hours while they run their meetings, and I can just observe body language. I can just observe their vocal variety, but I cannot understand what they're saying or how exactly they're doing their roles. It's just a perception, right? I did take a couple of my friends later on to some meetings to help understand them, who were Polish friends, so they could translate a bit for me. But it's, of course, you can imagine it's not that easy. So all I was doing was really showing them that I'm here, even though I cannot really help you because of the language barrier during the meeting itself, but I can give advice afterwards if you have any questions. The first thing I recommended them was to conduct a demo meeting, and we did it in the same way as we do it for new clubs. The other thing was we discussed and they realized it themselves that they need to rebrand and they need a new location. Fortunately, they found a new location which was right in the city center, so that was perfect. There is no better club now in that city that has a better location than them, and they got it for free. It was one of the founders who was working in a company and he could get the room for free every week. So that was one major problem solved because their original location was just terrible, far away, and it was very hard to reach. The second problem was with the branding. So they had the branding towards startups because originally the founders were entrepreneurs and they wanted a club focused on startups. But the reality is it's Wrocław, it's not Berlin, it's not London, it's not Silicon Valley. There are not that many startups. And even if they are, public speaking is not their main focus. They are not pitching to VCs and it's just not, the scale is not there. And the guys realized that after 3-4 years. So they had a brainstorm and they thought that the best way to do, and they come from a technology background. So they said the best branding for that club would be to target to IT people. And that is true. In Wrocław, there are many IT companies with thousands of employees. So there's a lot of IT people there. So they changed the name of the club to IT Toastmasters. That was good. It was going fine. 4 or 5 people were still present in the meeting and they seemed to be motivated to do things. They organized a demo meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to that demo meeting because I had an area director visit to another club. So I missed it completely. Apparently, a lot of guests showed up, like they had like 10, 15 guests. So it was a very successful meeting. 7, 8 of those guests said, we want to join. And I was very happy. I remember I wrote a message to Elena, who was the club growth director. I think it might have worked because we got a lot of new members. So it may all be, maybe the tide has turned. Well, a week passed and 2 weeks passed and they didn't organize another meeting. And it's very hard to get any information from them. But then finally I talked to a couple of people and I realized that yes, some people did say they want to join, but then there was no follow-up. Nobody contacted them. Nobody called them, emailed them. Nobody asked them to fill any form. And as a result, all those leads were lost. On top of that, the founder who had found the location decided he had other personal stuff going on. He decided to resign. He said, I cannot help anymore. This was November. It's a club that meets weekly. So they decided, so they have 6-month club officer terms. And they said, okay, we're going to have elections. And they decided a date. So I said, okay, I will come to that meeting and we will discuss more. And that was around November something, 2018. But just before, like 3 or 4 days before that meeting, the president at that time, he wrote me a message and he said, can you please tell us how to close the club? And I said, what do you mean? I said, oh, I think we don't have enough people and there is no point, the founder is gone as well. So just tell us what is the procedure to close the club. I was very disappointed to hear that. I talked with Patrick as well about this, the other club coach. And I told the president, just wait till the meeting. I know there is nobody coming. It's just 3 or 4 people, but let's just meet there and we will talk more. He said, okay. And I think this is where the critical moment was. Either we could have given up, this is where the helping hand was needed. They were at a stage where a lot of different things had happened during the previous years, previous months especially, where they thought no matter what they did, they are not going to recover. And the way I decided to give them a helping hand was not just to say that I'm available or Patrick is available. I actually wrote a message to all the president of all the clubs in my area. And I asked them if they or can come to this meeting, or if they can send another officer on their behalf to this meeting, because I wanted to show the club that they are not alone, that they have other clubs here, and if they would ask for help, they would get help. And that I feel is very much true for Toastmasters. I have tried this before, and I always try this. Whenever you ask Toastmasters for help, they usually say yes, unless there is something else going on. If they're available, they will come. And they did. We had a couple of presidents, we had a couple of VP educations and PR, all the clubs represented there. Suddenly we had 10, 11 people in that meeting, but there were only 3 original members of the club. And they asked me the question, like, we want to close the club. The president said, we want to close the club. So I simply, before I tell you what we did next, let me show you the next slide. So overall, not just with this club, but overall, looking at the German club that I had that was struggling, in my opinion, there are 2 major kinds of problems you can face with struggling clubs. The first ones are the internal problems, not motivated officers, not motivated members. There is some conflict going on. There is a negative atmosphere. There is non-serious attitude, and people just, don't really want to improve anything. They have lost all kind of motivation there. These are really critical problems. And then there are external problems where, like, the location of the meeting is not good. These are just examples. I'm sure there are more. Or if it's a corporate club or it's a university club, for example, and the support of the organization that was sponsoring it is no longer there, that can lead to a struggling club. The marketing is not good for whatever reason. There is no good follow-up or process to really follow the lead and get new members in. Our officers just don't know their roles because they're very new members. They didn't get any proper training, and they just don't know what they're supposed to do. So they are just doing the best they can, but they just don't know. So they lack knowledge or they lack experience. So these are external problems. So you deal with them in a bit different way, because external problems require kind of help from outside as well. It's not just dependent on the club itself. Internal problems can only be solved from the inside. Nobody from outside can come and say, hey, do this, and then your problems will be gone. No, it has to be an inside effort. So when they came to me and said, we want to close the club, I said, okay, fine, that's fine. There were only literally three members from that original club sitting there on that day. And I asked them to share, why did they join Toastmasters? When did they join Toastmasters? And have they achieved all their goals? So the president at that time came and he said, yes, I wanted to be a better speaker, better leader, and I have achieved all my goals. So he had pretty much resigned. He didn't want to continue. But the other two guys who were not officers at that moment said, yeah, we joined Toastmasters to improve our public speaking. We joined to improve our leadership skills, and we don't think we have achieved our goals. So I said, okay. And at this moment, I was just talking to those two people because the president was a lost cause. He's completely lost motivation. There is no time. I didn't think there was any way I could persuade him to put any effort into this anymore. So they were just two people. And I asked him, so here's the thing. If their goal was especially around leadership, then, and they both mentioned leadership, fortunately. I said, if your goal is for leadership, this is the best situation you could ask for, right? This is the, if we put this in a real life situation, that's like a company is dying and you are the only one who are left there, and you can try anything you want to bring it back up, So that's the biggest leadership exercise you can have without any major consequences, because it's not a real company. So in the worst case, the club will die and they can always join another club. So that's what I told them. I said, look at all the people that are sitting here. You never asked for help. All I did was, like 3 days ago, contacted these other clubs, and look how many people showed up. If we will ask for more help, more people will show up. So you have people here to help you. You have me and Patrick here to help you. What are you going to do about it? And at this point, I let them talk in Polish because, that's what I wanted to, I felt like they can discuss it better in Polish. They are native Polish speakers. A lot of other people that were present there were Polish, so I didn't need to listen to the discussion. And they brainstormed together, literally for half an hour. They spent together with those other people from other clubs, thinking what they can do differently, And they came up with the solution. Oh, we're going to organize a proper demo meeting in the beginning of the year. Until then, we are going to do all the roles together, and we need help with this, we need help with this, we need help with this. I said, no problem, we'll help you. And they identified a few things like, marketing budget and all that stuff. And that's it. They came up with the solution. So they were motivated. Over the course of December, they prepared a lot of good marketing materials for Facebook. We had a couple of meetings where we sat down and we went through the agenda and how to talk to the guests and how to run the meeting. We got an experienced Toastmaster to come and run that meeting for us. It was right in the beginning of January. So the marketing way they went with was New Year, new resolutions. And if you're in IT, join us. On the very first meeting, they got, 20 plus guests. And by the end of the meeting, they had 8 people giving them the forms. Over the next 5 days, they followed up with those 8 people. They got all of them to pay their membership fee. So they got 8 new members, plus the 2 original ones. And at this moment, I suggested to them, why don't you have another election? Because 2 people were running the whole club. I said, this is not sustainable for long. Why don't you involve these new people that just joined and let them help you? So the next week, the week after, they actually had an election, and few of the new people decided to take a VP PR role and VP membership role and be the treasurer and be the sergeant, while these 2 guys became the president and VP education. So we treated it as a new club. We decided to forget about the history. There was already a rebrand, so it didn't matter. There were no more old members there to say, oh no, we always did things this way. So the club was new. It was pretty much a brand new club, with the only difference being that it didn't have 20 members. It had just 10 after that first week. But over the next 2 months, they did a brilliant job. And I was there on most of the meetings as much as I could, and I didn't do anything except sit there, take pictures for them, and nothing else. I've printed some stuff for them because they said, if you can print and help us in that way. I did that, nothing more. And by the end of those 2 months, the numbers had grown above 15 overall active members. On paper, they were high, but active members were already 15. So there were a lot of new members. We had a lot of sessions with the officers to train them. I had personally had 2-3 sessions just to train them, because these are new officers, they didn't know anything. So the knowledge had to be shared. I got Elena to come especially because I felt that, again, going back to the helping hand and realizing that there are people out there that can help you, that's very important. When you feel that you're not alone in this, that's the biggest motivator when you're down. So I felt like it's not just me being there enough, because I'm all the time there and they're getting used to me. How about I get the club growth director to come? And I asked Elena, and she was very kind to come, especially to their meeting, and run the moments of truth. That was very beneficial because they brainstormed together how they can improve their marketing and all those things that we have in the moments of truth. And then they worked on that. And after that, 2 months, I had to go on holidays, and the club went fine. They had renewals. After renewals, they still had, I think, 15, 16 active members. Over the next couple of months, they grew them above 20. By the time June came around, they were already president distinguished. A couple of older members that had stopped coming long time back came back. One of the founders came back. The club is still going strong. Even to this day, they have more than 20 members. They had representation in the contest this season at the division. They take active part in going to other clubs, inviting other people to their club. You can clearly see on Facebook that they are doing it well. And there is not, even those 2 people that were originally there that I had the most interaction with, they are not there. One, because he had personal issues and he, after a few months, couldn't continue. And the other one moved out of the country. So it's all new people. It's a new club. It's a completely different club. And that, in my biggest success in that whole year, we started many clubs, but this was the thing that I'm most proud of. And the most, as a leader, that's where I learned the most while doing in Toastmasters. So what did I do there? These were all internal problems they were facing. They had external issues as well, and that's not a problem. We can help with that. But the internal problems, they can solve. And you will, if you will be coaching struggling clubs, you may notice that there are some internal issues, like people are not, like team is not working properly, or they're not motivated anymore, or they don't care anymore. And the best way to solve that is to tell them that it's you. There is no external thing that can come and solve this for you. This is you, this is your problem. You know what the problem is. What are you going to do about it? Let them come and come up with the solution themselves. Let them decide if they want to do it or no at all. Because if you don't have motivated people, I don't see how we can rescue a club. Just like we cannot start a new club without having motivated people to start the new club, I don't think we can rescue a club if we don't have motivated people there to do it. You need people, you cannot do it yourself. So they have to come up and solve those internal problems. And then of course there will be external problems where your knowledge as experienced Toastmasters can help. So just to go quickly here, what I already mentioned, for example, location. If you're living in the city, you know other Toastmasters, you have connections, that's where you can help. You can ask other Toastmaster club how they manage their location so that new club can find it as well. If it is a corporate club or a university club, then you have to help and reach to that organization and the people there to get the proper support for this club. Because in a corporate club, if somehow they lost the support of the HR or the learning department, it will be very, very hard to keep the club going. Simply becomes very, very difficult because without a big sponsor there. If they're not doing good marketing, if they simply lack knowledge, about how to pursue leads and how to talk to guests and how to convert them to a member, this is just knowledge sharing, right? And in some cases, maybe you are not the expert. You have been assigned a club coach, but you are not yourself good at marketing. But I think club coaches are usually experienced Toastmasters and they know other people who are good at this stuff. So you have to find those people and get them connected to those struggling clubs and share their knowledge. And in this moment, of course, the district officers are also there. So area director, division director, and in the core team, they should be asked for as much help as possible to solve these external problems that can be solved from the outside. But those, in my opinion, external problems are not the reason clubs fail. This is just lack of knowledge, which can always be shared. The reason clubs fail is the internal reasons. And for that, you have to talk to them. For external problems, just help them, guide them, share your experience, connect them with other Toastmasters. That's it. That's all you can do, all you need to do, and they will be solved automatically. But if those internal problems persist, nothing is going to change. So in summary, if I had one thing for you to take out of this, was to remember to just give a helping hand, to remind them that they're not alone, that you are there to support them, not tell them what to do. You are not any kind of authority. You are not a magic pill. You are not their boss. You are not their parents. You are just there to help them with whatever they needed. And remind them that they are not alone. I think this is the best way you can do it for them. So give a helping hand, and then everything else is kind of obvious, like the external help and you sharing knowledge, that those things are obvious and they will come in time. But you cannot give really a helping hand. You have to build a relationship. You have to be present to build this credibility of yourself and then give a helping hand. That's the way I would approach any struggling club. That's all I had to share from my experience. And now we can go to the questions. But just so that I may forget it later. If you need to contact me, you can contact me anytime and we can have a chat about a very specific problem later on as well. Or if you want to know more details, you can get in touch as well through any of these channels.
Zain, it's Elizabeth. I have a question for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good. You mentioned the role of the area director and the district director. How soon would you involve those, the area and the district director? I know they've got 2 club coaches, they're helping the club, but how soon would you get the area and the district director involved, and in what capacity?
So in my opinion, all area directors or any district officer, what they can do is show their support and make the club realize that there is this whole structure. A lot of members don't realize that there is a district. They don't know anything beyond what exists in their club meeting. So they don't even know. And sometimes you have very inexperienced officers elected in this way in struggling clubs who don't really understand how much support is available out there. So I would say it's just to show the support, right? Because the district officers have a lot of stuff to do. So they will, that's why we have, in my opinion, that's why the club coach role is different, because club coach is a job in itself. I would say club coach is more or less the same level as area director in terms of time and effort commitment from my experience. And I did both of them at the same time. It was the only reason I was able to do was because I had time in my personal life to dedicate to this. Right now, I wouldn't be able to do this. So that was a very specific situation. In terms of when to involve them, and by involving them, what I would say is either share knowledge or come and facilitate a session like a moment of truth. That would be as soon as possible, but not without first talking with the club officers. Because you're going to be talking with the club officers mostly, so they have to know and they have to be okay with it. They don't, like, let's assume a situation where you have just been appointed a club coach, and now you go there and you say, hey, I can get the district director to come and conduct a moments of truth for you. They don't know district director. They don't even know you very well yet. They haven't realized all the problems they have. They don't trust. The trust hasn't been built yet. The relationship hasn't been built yet. So it might not serve that purpose. In my case, Elena came about 2 months or 3 months after this initial major work that we had to do with the club. And then when she came, there were already a lot of new members, and the support that she was able to provide to them was really, really beneficial by that time for the club.
Thank you.
Hello, it's the other Elizabeth here.
Yeah.
So what did you find worked to put a process in place that the officers or somebody was keeping track of the guests and getting the forms to them and so on?
Oh, that was, so this was an issue that I identified as an area director long before I started coaching them. I realized that a lot of our clubs just simply don't do it properly. In my club, in Rosler Speakers, we were doing it rather consistently, and that was, we were noting down the email addresses of every guest every week. And we were giving them already during the meeting, we were giving them a pack which included the membership form, which included the payment information and a bit more information about Toastmasters in general and our club. So they were taking this stuff back with them, the guests, and the next day or next couple of days, we were sending them a reminder email. And that was only one email. So we were not bombarding them, but one email we were sending them that if they have any questions or if they want to join, then they can ask. If a guest was very enthusiastic during the meeting and they already expressed a very strong interest to join, then there was a bit more follow-up. So the VP membership or the trader were actually calling that person and making sure that the person knows how to pay, where to pay, and what to join. So that's the part where, that's the first part of the puzzle, in my opinion. So that's where you take a guest to member. But that's not enough. Then you have to take a member to a committed member. And that's where I think the responsibility kind of shifts to VP education. So we had a good process of that in our club as well. We were sending a welcome email which had information about pathways and what is an icebreaker. And we had always priority slots for them. So they were given icebreaker slot as soon as possible, sometime in the next week as well, because the sooner you get them to the stage, the better it is. So basically, I had all of this knowledge thanks to my club. And in general, I prepared a club officer training during this time for all the clubs. And I basically shared that with the struggling club as well, because they were not present in the club officer training. They didn't know any of this. So I just shared with them. But it was nothing specific for them. It was just a very generic process that we had already been using that worked for us. And that seemed to be working for them as well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think that's what I see in a struggling club that I'm working with now, is they don't have these kind of automatic processes. The officers aren't dealing with the forms, keeping track of the emails. So it's a key point.
Yeah, it is. From a like this is what I would call an external problem as such, because this is just, it's mostly because of lack of knowledge. So the officers just simply don't realize the importance of these small little things. Because most of us are not from sales, but this is like a funnel, right? So and at every step of that funnel, we have to keep track and we have to keep pushing, and we're going to lose some of those prospects in each stages, but some of them will reach the final stage. And they just have to understand how this all works. And it's not specific to Toastmasters. It works the same way in any kind of, when you're trying to sell something. And that's essentially what we are doing. We're selling Toastmaster experience or club experience to a potential member. So once they realize that, in my opinion, the why and the purpose behind it, I feel like they see the value in doing it, you know, because it can be a bit disheartening. You collect, I don't know, 10 emails because from the 10 guests, then you send a reminder email and you then don't get any reply, because just on that specific day, all those 10 members, 10 guests were simply not Toastmaster material. They just were not interested, and nothing you can do about that, right? But sometimes there are 10 guests and 2 of them are interested, but we don't do this follow-up and we lose even those 2. So it's just making sure that we don't lose anyone, and making officers realize that there is benefit of doing this hard work as well, even though it may sometimes seem that we don't get enough result out of it.
May I fill in with another comment? Have you
Yeah.
heard of the member moment? So this is a strategy that was used in a lot of clubs, where they'll have one existing member of the club talk about why he joined Toastmasters or what he got out of it. And it's 1 to 2 minutes max. And this is the kind of thing that gets others really interested, because they've had that problem or that situation, and then it's like, oh, there's something more here.
That's true. Yeah. We didn't try anything specific to that, but I can clearly see how that would work. You know, I have shared with my colleagues and friends how Toastmasters has helped me, and as a result, they came to visit themselves and then became members. So I can clearly see it working as a process as well. Like if you could have a 2-minute slot every week and one member sharing their experience, that might work as well.
One question from my side, Zain. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Zain, one question. In this case, well, in Wrocław, there are few clubs, or they were even founded few clubs.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the clubs are at certain point, they experiment some kind of competitiveness between them, and that they say, okay, there is a competition between all to gather members. How to deal with this? It was some problem with Wrocław clubs like that?
You mean stealing members from each other club, or like not trusting that? No, fortunately, I think in Wrocław, this was never a problem, because in my opinion, we still don't have enough clubs in Wrocław, especially Polish speaking, because it's a big city. It's like around 700,000 people, and there are six or seven clubs, I think, if I remember correctly, in Polish. The others are in other languages. It's still not enough. There can be many more corporate clubs. So I think the clubs realize that. There is the oldest club, the Polish club that was the first one started in Wrocław. That has like, I think, 57, 58 members almost constantly, right? And every meeting, they not only tell about their club and how to join, but they mention all the other Polish clubs as well. Hey, we are a lot of members here. It will be harder for you to get a speaking slot. Maybe you want to check other clubs as well. So I think there's a good level of cooperation, and nobody feels even in the time when this club was struggling, they tried to have combined meeting with another club just to have a meeting and get potential guests from there. So clubs didn't mind that, and I think it just comes down to the fact that the community is well integrated overall. So people know each other from different events. There were Christmas dinners organized for the whole area for a few years regularly, and then people visiting in general other clubs has built these connections, which makes it easier to cooperate rather than fight, because fighting is not going to serve anyone. And I was very clear in the very beginning as well as area director that we can have a lot more clubs and we can have a lot more growth here. And they all bought into that as well. So there was never an issue with that.
No, thank you very much.
I forgot one thing to mention, because I was saying that one of my key lesson was that it's very important to be present. But I do know, at least in District 108, that we have remote coaches. So we have coaches from Poland that are helping clubs in Finland, for example, right? And some of those clubs in Finland are not in a big city; they are somewhere in a smaller town. As a result, there is no close by any Toastmaster club either. Honestly speaking, I do feel that's a much bigger challenge, simply because you're not there, right? You're physically not there, so you have to rely a lot on technology. And sometimes people might simply not be comfortable with that. If in those situations the local district officers could be involved a bit more and early on, that may help. Because there is no subsidy. Technology has progressed far enough that it feels like we are having a real meeting, but it's still not a perfect substitute for a real life meeting. So in those clubs, I think it is possible to coach them, especially share the knowledge and follow up. But sometimes there might be a more closer, intimate touch is needed, and that's where the local district officers, like area directors and higher, could help with that. If you're coaching a club, did you face any specific problem or challenge that you're facing currently, or you faced in the past that we can?
Elizabeth here again. I'm coaching one, and there's a couple of the original not positive for the club. The club is located at a company, even though it's not considered to be a company club. But the couple of the people, in my opinion only, let me put it that way, they are not working, and they don't think in a business-like way that the rest of the members are thinking. So they're actually, what I might say, a detriment to the club. But they happen to be the ones that are keeping the club going. So.
Yeah, that's a bit harder, unfortunately, I didn't face directly that kind of situation. So people I was working on were very motivated and they wanted to rescue the club. But if there are people who are just hell-bent on not trying anything different or new, unfortunately, there is not a lot you can do, right? As a club coach, we have limitations. So as I said, we cannot do it for them. So we have to convince them and persuade them to change themselves if that's the problem, or to help them, guide them for the external problems that they might be facing. That's all we can do as good club coaches. And that's why I think it's a harder job than area director, because the area director has very specific things to do, right? So it's easier, it's a checklist. But club coach is much, much more people-to-people contact. And that's where all the learning comes from as a leader. So you really have to dig deep in like how to get through to these people.
I agree. Yeah.
Zain, another question from the other Elizabeth.
Yeah.
What training, if any, did the club coaches receive? I know that they usually experience Toastmasters, but nevertheless, this may require some level of training. Was any training provided?
Let me think. So I do remember there were a few webinars earlier in the year in 2019 done by a few people in our district, so in District 108. I knew a lot simply because I was a district officer, so I was anyway involved with the district trainings, and helping struggling clubs was part of the training as well. So I got a lot of information and support from there as well, from experienced Toastmasters. But I don't think there was a very specific training for all the club coaches as such. I don't think so. And it might be beneficial, sometime. I think one of the reasons we got a lot of club coaches was because of this new announcement that if you do club coach, you don't have to be a district officer to become DTM. And suddenly you got a lot of interest, right? But not always were those people really motivated to do it, or even knew how to approach this as a problem, right? In the past, only very experienced Toastmasters who were really going for their DTM would volunteer for this, who usually had district experience as well as a district officer. So I think a structured training, few tips and tricks, maybe just simply experience sharing from other people who have successfully coached the club might help the current coaches.
I can throw in another comment there. In our different districts in Europe, then different districts have done more or less educational programs. So I think what we're identifying here is that it would be really useful.
Yes, yeah.
Here is Adriana, one question from me. So you mentioned at some point this German-speaking club, which you chose I mean, not to concentrate on. I don't know exactly what happened with it, but I was wondering if you have any specific approach for foreign language clubs, like in a country. I mean, clubs that like the German one, for instance. Yeah.
So I had two cases around that. So German club was already there and it was struggling. It was originally started as a company club. At some point it became a community club and it had 10 members, right? A lot of them experienced members though. So they were there for years. They just weren't able to attract new members for some reason. And they had two club coaches. One of them is a current area director, so he really worked with them. He was really present and he was talking with them and meeting them. Unfortunately, I couldn't go because it clashed with my home club meeting, so I didn't visit them as often, but I was in touch. One of the problems we simply identified was there were not enough German people in that city to sustain a big club. So they never, from their history of 6-7 years as a club, they never had more than, at the height they had 22 members, and that only lasted like 6 months. They were always around 17, 18 right after the charter. And those were coming from the company sometime, and then the company lost support and somehow they fell. The other issue they had was, and this is a solution they tried, was to let anybody join, and as a result a few people joined simply because they wanted to do speeches, and they were doing speeches in English. So one time I did an area director visit for them, and I saw on the agenda that there were 2 speeches in English while only 1 speech in German. And so half the meeting is in English. Now, there were 2 guests on that day, on that meeting. And I asked the question to the president and the officers later on, like, what do you think is their impression, right? Like, they saw the event and they thought this is a German meeting. And it turned out that one of the guests there didn't understand any English. She knew Polish and she knew German, but she didn't know any English. So half the meeting was useless for her. So that was a very wrong impression they were making. They were selling one thing online and in their marketing, and then providing a very different kind of product, which was not matching. And that's where how you ruin the expectation versus the reality thing, and they just never come back, the guest. So this was a problem they were facing. And my suggestion at that point was to make it a dual language club, simply. Mm-hmm. Because there were not enough German-speaking members. So make it a German/English and advertise it as such. Maybe have 1 meeting in German, 1 in English, or half a meeting, something, whatever the solution might work. So they went in that direction a bit. They had few English meetings, and as a result, they did get few members. So they reached 15, which was the bare minimum they had to reach. And they had anyway experienced members, so they got all the awards, and they ended up being, I think, distinguished or select distinguished. But I think they are still at the same position. So I think they may have dropped again to 10, 11. I don't know. I haven't checked right now. But this will not be solved unless they do something radical. And another example that might be helpful in this is that in my term last year, there was a Ukrainian club started in Wrocław. Mm-hmm. So if I say there are not enough German people, I think maybe Ukrainians are similar amount. There has been a lot of Ukrainian people moving to the city, so that was a new phenomena. And as a result, when you have a lot of people moving from a same country to a new place, they tend to stick it as a community. There is a community center there, and people know each other. They face the same problems and so on. So the reason they were able to start that club, and it took them a few months to start it, and it's still going pretty well, because they have very strong relation to the local community, local Ukrainian community. While the German club doesn't have that, because there is no German local community to like the way they have a Ukrainian community, So this is I think it's a very individual thing to see. I think that's why the Ukrainian club is still working strong, because there is always an influx of new people there, and they're dedicated people, and they're not just Toastmaster members, they're actually friends, and they meet outside of Toastmasters as well. While the Germans is completely different. None of them are native German speakers. They're either Polish or a couple of foreigners, and there's no sense of this community as a result.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else has any question? We, I think, still have 1 minute. Well, if not, anyway, you can.
I don't know if you can hear me. Sorry.
Now we can. Yeah.
Yeah. This is Ella. I'm from Łódź, and I'm current area director here. So of course I got a lot of questions, but I received already a lot of answers. But I would like to ask you, because currently we are starting a new club, which is a corporate club, and majority of people, they are not experienced Toastmasters. You mentioned that if there are people without any experience and knowledge, it's good to teach them, to show them some basic, that they are doing the best that they can, but sometimes they can miss some knowledge or some kind of experience like that. What you would say would be the first steps to let them know, apart from fulfilling the roles, or how it is with the Toastmasters in general and in icebreaker, because this we went through. I'm just wondering about the next steps. What would be good to support them with at the beginning?
Okay. So I think this is a overall area I noticed, and I'm sure the district is now very much focused on that, because I was talking with the current officers that are working in this year, that there is a bit more focus on the officer training in general. But what I noticed for the 3 years, or more or less 3 years, that I was in Poland, in our district at that time, the officer trainings were light in terms of new information. So they focused a lot on a leadership skill, for example, how to delegate, or how to persuade, and things like that. These are soft skills, right? But they missed kind of the information that come, day-to-day practical stuff. And the reason for that was because we had a lot of established clubs, and in that, what happens is that you have experienced officers, and the new officers come, and the knowledge is passed, right? So the new officers don't have to learn everything from outside. The knowledge is transferred very naturally, organically. This does not happen with the new clubs, and it does not happen with the struggling club if everybody is new there. So what you need to do, and what I realized as area director, that one officer training was simply not enough for them. I could talk for just how to recruit members for a community club. For 2 hours, we could have brainstorm, and we could design the processes and see what is working and what is not working. Purely on marketing, you could have a 2-hour sessions. So you cannot cover all of that in a typical officer training. That would take a whole weekend or longer, and people don't have time for that. So what I did was instead talk to, if possible, all the officers together for a couple of hours, short session concentrated on a specific topic, or talk directly. For example, if we're talking about marketing, so talk with the VPPR. And I'm not an expert in marketing, so most of the time I was asking somebody else to help me with that. But around the VP membership topics and education topic, where I had a lot of knowledge myself, I was just going and talking to them individually, sitting with them for an hour and 2 hours and helping them. Easy Speak is another thing, right? These people don't know how to use Easy Speak, and if you don't teach them, at some point they're going to give up. All the 4 clubs that we started in Wrocław, they all use Easy Speak, but the reason they use is because I helped them create the clubs on Easy Speak, and I was guiding them, and I was involved with the VP education for the 2-3 months, because they had a lot of questions. How can I do this? How can I change the agenda? How can I get a visiting Toastmaster? All these things. And these are small questions. They don't ask these questions because they're embarrassed or you're not available. So you have to be available and present, and then they ask. So my whole point is that these practical things become very important, and I would treat a new club or a struggling club or new members in general as like babies for the first 6 months, where you have to teach them every little thing, keep an eye on them. And the best way is just talk to them and ask them if they have any questions. So if you have a good relationship, they will come to you and ask the questions. If they don't really, then maybe that's where the problem happens, because they're embarrassed to ask the question. I think that's what happens, right? Nobody asking for help is not easy. It's being vulnerable. And sometimes they just don't ask because they think, we have all the answers, or we'll manage somehow. So they ignore these things. And the beginning is small thing, and later on it becomes a bigger problem. So you have to, as a district officer and your area director, so the one thing you can do is just be visible for them. So be prepared to help. And so they feel comfortable coming to you with any embarrassing question as well, like a simple thing as well. And you help them anyway.
Okay, here the situation is even more, maybe not complicated, but different. There are no officers because the club is not even chartered. So this is like the beginning of the beginning, I would say.
I don't know the specific situation, and we can talk later on as well. But my theory with the new clubs is, and there was a webinar I did for District 71 as well, couple of months back. Like starting a new club is less about doing a kickoff meeting and signing up members, and it's more about planning. So if you do the proper planning, starting a club becomes very easy, and there is no reason for, especially for corporate club, if the planning is there and the funding is there, starting a club is a piece of cake. It's more harder is sustaining it for longer. For a community club, of course, it can take longer. The reason I'm saying is that, in my opinion, the first meeting should be a demo meeting, and you should do it in a way that you get 20 signups and the payments are done in the next week. And the second meeting should be an election, so you choose the officers and they take the responsibility of the club. And then you have the mentors and assigned as well from the district to help those clubs. I think if you follow this order very specifically, you wouldn't have this situation, right? So if you want, we can talk offline more about that as well, or you can have a look at my webinar, because I went into a lot of details what should be done during the planning part of it, and maybe some steps were missed, and that's why you are in a situation where you don't have it.
Yeah, sure. I guess I would use both your webinar and also talk with you more with details.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as I don't have all the answers really, it's just from my experience. So I was able to start a corporate club in 2 weeks in my company in Wrocław a year back. And we started the community club in the same way in just 2 weeks. So I think these things are possible, but it does require a lot of planning and the knowledge, which I was fortunate enough to have at that point. And then you need couple of people at least who are motivated enough to take the initiative as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Zain. I guess it's like you said before, you're not a pill that will solve all the problems.
No, I mean, I said it, I would have loved all my clubs to be president distinguished, and I knew how they could be, and I was telling them, but not always it works, right? I may have all the answers, but I cannot do everything for all the clubs all the time. So it's not sustainable. So, and as leaders, it's just not sustainable, right? In a company, when you're running your own business or you're leading an organization with hundreds of people, you're not going to be doing the jobs for them. You're there to solve their problems and to give them knowledge and support, but not there to do their job for them. That's where sometimes people burn out. And, so I came very close to burning out because I was doing club coach and area director at the same time. That was not, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone. It's a lot of work, both of them individually. Any last questions? Okay, I don't hear anything. So you have my contact, you can find me or write me over email or find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we can talk more. Thank you to Adriana and Justina who invited me for this webinar. I think I enjoyed it, sharing my story of how I coached the club. I hope you found it helpful as well.
Okay, thank you, Zain, very much. It was really inspiring and like heartwarming to follow your story. And I really enjoyed it and learned many things. So thank you very much for giving this webinar.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.